to y'all a couple weeks ago is why you're here. That you were just you felt bad for me crying after class when no one came. So this is in some sense the first class, even though this I don't know how do y'all divide classes trimesters here. Been going for a couple weeks. The title of the class, is it in the bulletin? Does it say a title for the class in there? All stories are true. That was a title that uh, Haley came up with from she told me, I didn't know, it's not anything that came out of my head. This is from an Igbo Nigerian proverb, and you can probably surmise what the proverb is suggesting. By no means do we think that literally all stories are true. I can make up a story right now that's very much not true. But the idea being that all the stories that we tell, especially the ones that stand the test of time, are stories that have some meaning behind them, that have some importance behind them. There's something there that we should be listening to. And so the class that I'm hoping to do for several weeks is a class where we're going to take stories that we're all familiar with to some extent. We'll look at a couple this week, one of which I'll be interested to see who is familiar with it beforehand. But stories that we're mostly familiar with, I think next week we'll do stories about George Washington chopping down the cherry tree, a story that we all know. Maybe some stories about Abraham Lincoln as well. We'll look at like some fairy tales this week. There's a Brothers Grimm fairy tale that we're going to look at, and an Aesop's fable, and see what's behind these stories, why they're important, and then compare them to biblical stories and see, are they telling us similar things, are they telling us different things? And I expect that week to week we'll get different answers to that question. That sometimes these stories from other parts of culture, other stories that we learned as children, do very much map onto the biblical story or Christian narratives. And other times we might find a little bit of tension there. So this week, the theme for our stories is greed. And I want to talk about two stories. And first of those is The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg. I assume we're all pretty familiar with that. You've maybe seen like the older Willy Wonka, so you've at least like seen a goose that lays golden eggs. And then also, here's the one that I'm more curious: The Fisherman and His Wife. Is this a story that, just from the title alone, does this sound familiar to anyone? Okay, this is a Brothers Grimm story. I'll tell y'all it later, and then you can tell me after the fact, oh, I already knew that story. I've heard it so many times. My mom told it to me when I was growing up, which would be really weird after we talk about it. Okay, so does anyone want to just take a stab at The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg? I think this is. It's also. I was thinking when I was writing this that don't often really even think of there. It's outside of the context of the story itself. You normally just use like that phrase, "Goose that laid the golden egg," or like as a symbol, and there's less of a story. In fact, when I was looking it up, I could only find there are several versions of it, and Goose that laid the golden egg, the best I could find was just like a short paragraph. It's a very brief story. So I'll just read it. And then after I read it, I want to hear from y'all. What do you think? What's behind the story? What are the themes of the story? What's the point of it? So, The Goose That Laid the Golden Egg, or that laid the golden eggs. A cottager and his wife had a goose that laid a golden egg every day. They supposed that the goose must contain a great lump of gold in its inside, and in order to get the gold, they killed her. Having done so, they found to their surprise that the goose differed in no respect from their other geese. The foolish pair, thus hoping to become rich all at once, deprived themselves of the gain of which they were assured day by day. Okay, pretty short story. What's going on here? What I mean, it kind of summarizes it there at the end, but I want to hear it in your own words, not in Aesop's words. What's the point of this story?
If you're given a gift that is beneficial to you and sustains you and is guaranteed to you, why go searching for more?
Why go searching for more? Contentment seems to be a big feature here. That you already have something that works well. Why would you need more? What else do you see in this story? Greed, yeah. I like that phrasing in the story that they assume that the goose must contain a great lump of gold in its inside. It's just a strange way of saying that. That's certainly not what I would have assumed about this goose, but this idea that, oh, there's just a big chunk of gold inside of this thing. Let's cut it open, see what happens. Have y'all seen, I assume this will break my heart. We'll change the entire structure of the class if not. Have y'all seen the, 1970s Willy Wonka that has? They go into the room, it's got the giant geese. Mickey, have you not seen with Gene Wilder? Okay. That'll be next week. We're gonna skip George Washington. That's less important. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? It's a pretty brief one, so I don't expect us to need to glean a whole lot from it. Anything else that you want to pick up on? Okay. So this other story, we're not familiar with the fisherman and his wife. I'm going to read it to you, so bear with me for just a little bit. This one's a little bit longer. So this is a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, and it might sound similar to maybe some other stories that we've heard. There is a poor fisherman who lives with his wife in a hovel by the sea. One day, the fisherman catches a fish who claims to be able to grant wishes, but begs to be set free. The fisherman kindly releases the fish and lets it go. When his wife hears the story, she says he ought to have had the fish grant him a wish. She insists that he go back and ask the flounder to grant her wish for a nicer house. The fisherman reluctantly returns to the shore, but is uneasy when he finds that the sea seems to be turbid, as it was so clear before. He makes up a rhyme to summon the flounder, and it grants the wife's wish. The fisherman is pleased with his new wealth, but the wife is not, and demands more, and demands that her husband go back and wish for a palace. Reluctantly, he does, and he gets his wish. But again and again, his wife sends him back to ask for more and more. She then asks to be made king, then to be made emperor, then to be made pope. Each time, the fisherman knows this is wrong, but there is no reasoning with his wife. He says that they should not annoy the flounder and be content with what they have been given, but his wife is not content. Each time the flounder grants the wishes with the words, "Just go home, she has it already." But each time the sea grows rougher and rougher. Eventually, the wife is discontent that the days do not begin and end when she wants, and so she wishes to command the sun, moon, and heavens, and sends her husband to the flounder with the wish, "I want to become equal to God." The storm is raging all around the fisherman, but he manages to find the flounder and convey his wife's request. The flounder just tells the fisherman to go home, stating that she is sitting in her old hovel again. And with that, the sea becomes calm once more, and the fisherman and his wife are once more living in nothing but their old, dirty hovel from before. Okay. Is this a story that we've heard before? Is this not a fairy tale that we're familiar with? So maybe I've already deconstructed the whole premise of this class if these are stories that we're all supposed to know. But I think we can manage. What's going on in the story? Discontentment. It's a major theme. And who in particular? The wife. What else?
Maybe like unsatisfied desire for more. It seems like you get what you want and you realize, oh, but I want to do that.
You want just a little bit more than what you've gotten. Even, yeah, so there might be at first certainly discontentment, but it might seem like a reasonable thing to ask for, but then it leads to something else. What else are we seeing? Instant gratification, especially with the very last request. Just the disappointment that the day doesn't begin or end when I want the day to begin or end. I was up very late last night, and I very much had that wish. The day could have gone a little bit longer. That would have been nice.
Probably an issue with like wanting my desires at the expense of others. In this, like it seems like she had really no empathy or understanding of how this was affecting the person himself.
Yeah, there seems to be discontentment for her husband, who says repeatedly, like, says, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Doesn't matter. Go out there." There's disinterest in what the flounder itself wants. It talks about the flounder, the fish wanting to just be left alone, and yet continually, no, we have more to ask of you. And then even again with probably with all of them, to be made king, to be made emperor, but certainly with that being made in charge of the sun, moon, and stars, there's the idea all of nature is now under my control, and everyone has to deal with what I want. What else?
Well, the husband's sort of fine as he wants to live life that he's supposed to try. But he's not going to, he's had this, what's going on.
Yeah, so very much in the story, one person might seem like the villain of the story, but maybe the flounder's all right. But the other characters aren't guilt free here. Do y'all think that the initial request from the wife is a just request? Does it seem okay?
What was the specific request again? Because it was a bigger house, but it didn't say she got a palace or something like that.
Well, that's the second one. Yeah, so they start in a hovel by the sea, and then her first request is a nicer house. That's all it says. I'm interested here. I'm gonna make y'all vote on this. And in fact, actually, let's just go down the line from the ones that it gives us here. This is not the verbatim version from the Brothers Grimm, so this may be missing some. But I want y'all to, if you think the initial request for a nicer house, that's a just request, that she was within her rights to have her husband go and convey to the flounder. That was totally legitimate. If you think it was acceptable, raise your hand for a nicer house. Okay. Robin's our only skeptical one. The second request for a palace. We think that this second request was acceptable. All right, so we're all immediately out after this. I assume if we went down the line, king, emperor, pope. Some of y'all aren't so worried about being pope. Yeah, she can have it. And then certainly, does anyone think it was a good idea for her to be equal to God? No heretics in the classroom. That's good. What's the difference here? What's the jump that's being made? These kids have no respect for. Why? Almost all of us thought the first thing was okay. Second one, not good.
Well, I think it initially started, oh, rich, nice, get something that, and then, like I think we, a lot of people have mentioned, the second she got it, it wasn't good enough. And so it's kind of like, the idea of it in the beginning seems fairly innocent, and then it just immediately escalated and like, it needed more and more and more. But like originally, it doesn't seem like that. We would all probably say that, rich person.
Yeah, the very first thing that you said, or how you said it, she got a wish. I feel like the key here is this is already something exceptional that no one would expect. This is still in some magical world where there's a magic flounder, but at the same time, we're supposed to assume the fisherman and his wife have no reason to expect that they're going to get any. They're going to live in their hovel their entire life, and then something different happens. Something exceptional happens. They get the opportunity for a wish. Now, and so you take this new special thing, you accept that for what it is, and you don't ask for more. That's sort of the idea here. What do y'all think about the fisherman's initial action? That the fish tells him, "I'll give you a wish," and he says, "That's all right," and then he lets it go.
Sometimes you just didn't believe the family. And
Yeah, you're talking to me, but I don't believe this.
I think I'd be interested to read the whole
The original.
story to see like how that interaction actually played out.
Yes.
Why he wanted to go, why the fisherman let him go, that sort of thing. But I think that's one important point is to say that the wife was given a wish, and so it was okay for her to fix the house. But the wife wasn't given a wish.
Someone was given a wish,
I mean,
but it wasn't her.
and
Yeah.
he said no, thank you. And so but she demanded that he go back, and so like that's already pretty presumptuous.
Yeah, presumptuous is a really good word for this. If we switch everyone to humans instead of magic animals, we put it in the 21st century. Does this situation seem like? Does it seem like it's breaking some social niceties here? That mainly this situation where the husband says no, thank you, and then is sort of goaded into going back and then asking again for it. I know I already said no, but actually, can we try this again? Have any of y'all been in that situation? There's few things as awkward as saying, I know I already said no thank you, but I take it all back. Okay, one other thing just before we move on is anyone notice in these stories, is there any sort of like gender or like relational marriage theme going on here that's worth mentioning? Let me phrase it a little bit differently. Is there a gender component to the second story?
The wife kind of forcing the husband into an action or taking action.
Yeah. Is anyone here? How can we get at this?
okay, I'm thinking going toward Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Okay. Eve is not.
Okay.
If we're talking about gender things, I mean, I kind of thought this was unique to my marriage. I'm way more often content with the way things are than my wife.
So you can sympathize maybe a little bit with the fisherman. Yeah, it's interesting to me that the first story, the goose that laid the golden egg. So that one is straight from it's a particular English version of Aesop's fable, but it makes the explicit point of mentioning the cottager and his wife, even though you could just very easily tell the story with one person. And then the second one, the whole story is about a guy going back to his wife, and as it's phrased in this abbreviated version, where was it? There's no reasoning with his wife. So there could be there's a very strong possibility of just like a sexist bent here in the story, but also there might be playing into some familiar tropes of relational dynamics, which I just thought is worth pondering. Okay, so what I'm interested to hear from y'all is So we have one, I think a really big one, Adam and Eve. What are some biblical stories that you think parallel these stories? The goose that laid the golden egg and the fisherman and his wife. Ahab and Jezebel. Can you elaborate just a little bit?
Ahab wanted to lie about not having that Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, so strong, which for Ahab and Jezebel, the kind of the wife's role and the fisherman gets split between the two characters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and lie about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, she's trying to maneuver it in a way that, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and you get the repeated episodes of, okay, well, maybe this way. Yeah.
I was thinking with the golden goose, especially,
Mm-hmm.
coming out every day and still not being
Yes. This is, and we're gonna go more in that direction in just a minute. There's another story about discontentment, not quite right after they've crossed into the promised land. Can anyone read my mind? You know what story I'm thinking of? It's a story about greed. Achan, yeah. We're gonna talk a little bit more about Achan. We're gonna say sometime. Glad we saved you that. Other thoughts? I have a few that I'll throw out there as well. I was thinking of, particularly with the last line of the fisherman and his wife. So what is her last request? To be equal with God. Okay, so that makes me think, one of, this isn't really a biblical story, but sort of a Christian historical story of the devil wanting to be equal with God. But then also thinking of the Tower of Babel is a big one. Actually, I think there's a lot of parallels with the stories that we get here with the Tower of Babel. Because some of us might suggest, or we might think that to build a tower, not that big of a deal. It's not a problem to have a goose that lays golden eggs to get one wish from the flounder. But it's when you add on to that a tower that'll reach all the way to heaven. That's when you start to have a few more problems. Do I have another one? Oh, Simon the Sorcerer, I think, is another good one. Of someone, hey, I want that power. There's this idea of greed there. Give me that power, and here I'll pay you for it. Presumption, I think, is also key for that story. So, thinking about the story of Achan, I'm trusting that y'all know the story of Achan better than you know the goose that laid the golden egg or the fisherman's wife. Help me. Rehearse the story with me. What's happening? Mm-hmm. So I think this is right after Jericho. You're not supposed to take any of the loot. And Achan does. And then they go to another battle. Does anyone remember who they're at? Yeah, AI. Not to be confused with ChatGPT. Very different things. And then what happens at the battle? Yeah, they lose badly. They say, this is Joshua chapter 7, if you need a refresher. And we'll read a little bit from it in just a second. They say should be an easy battle, especially right after Jericho. We're going to do great. And they go and they're handily defeated, and they actually have some casualties in this battle, which they hadn't had before. And then Joshua gets really upset, and it's like, God, why have you forsaken us? This becomes a recurring theme throughout the wandering in the wilderness with Joshua, where they just, as soon as anything remotely bad happens, they just start crying and saying, God, why'd you forsake us? God's, what are you talking about? And what does God tell them? Turn to Joshua 7, if you can. The Lord said to Joshua, this is in verse 10 of chapter 7, get up. Why have you fallen on your face? Israel has sinned. They've transgressed my covenant that I commanded them. They've taken some of the devoted things. They've stolen and lied and put them among their own belongings. Okay. I'm going to skip forward to verse 16, chapter 7. And this is the part that has to do with Achan. So Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel near tribe by tribe, and the tribe of Judah was taken. And he brought near the clans of Judah, and the clan of the Zerahites was taken. And he brought near the clan of the Zerahites man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought near his household man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Then Joshua said to Achan, my son, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and give praise to him, and tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. And Achan answered Joshua, truly I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I did. When I saw among the spoil a beautiful cloak from Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, then I coveted them, and took them. And see, they are hidden in the earth inside my tent, with the silver underneath. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and behold, it was hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. And they took them out of the tent and brought them to Joshua and to all the people of Israel, and they laid them down before the Lord. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan, the son of Zerah, and the silver and the cloak and the bar of gold, and his sons and daughters, and his oxen and donkeys and sheep, and his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why did you bring trouble on us? The Lord brings trouble on you today. Haunting, but a great line. Why did you bring trouble on us? The Lord brings trouble on you. All right, and all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire and stoned them with stones. Very redundant here. And they raised over him a great heap of stones that remains to this day. Then the Lord turned from his burning anger. Therefore, to this day, the name of this place is called the Valley of Achor. Okay. What parallels do you see with this story and our other stories?
It was, I don't know if that's right, but the word covet is a word that I feel like we don't really use in our like modern day society very often, but it's a very strong word. And like when I think of the golden goose, or the golden egg, like that's like they coveted more. They coveted what was inside the goose, and not just the small things of it and the small eggs that were given just daily. And he says that, then I coveted them and took them. That's exactly what causes us to do things today that we don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah, we talked about greed, lack of contentment, presumption. I don't think we use the word covet. And covet is this strong word. There's this almost like sensual, tangible aspect to it, or this gravitating force. I like pointing out for the goose and the golden egg that there's this idea of it drawing in. I have to get inside of there, and it sort of cuts through all of their reason. Sorry, Ty, I kind of cut you off. What else what do we see? What are parallels with these stories?
We talked about Aesop earlier, and sort of in the Vision of Golden Age, that God had been promising, I'm going to give you everything you need, land and crops and everything, and you couldn't wait for the Lord to fulfill the promises he had to
Yes. Yeah, so sort of jumping the gun on when, okay, you will get all these things, so much more than this few pieces of silver and gold and this fancy cloak, apparently. I can't imagine, like, oh, I found in the rubble of the city that we destroyed, like a really nice suit. I should take that. And so yeah, can't wait for this thing and trying to get it now. There's very much a problem with the goose that laid the golden egg. What else?
I was thinking about a lottery. And it was $1.8 billion. And you had to choose. Do I want to, will I just take 830 million on a one-time payment, or can I, will I get the whole 1.8 billion spread out over $847,000 a month? And no, I don't know all those details. But, and I thought, well, this seems like the choice, the same choice the golden goose people make.
Yeah.
Am I content with this little chunk of gold every day? And apparently I'm not. I've got to have it all right now.
Unlike the Fisherman and His Wife, where there is a larger version of the story, there's not a bigger version, but it would be fascinating to know how long had they had this goose laying them golden eggs. And
What did they do with that gold?
well, yeah, that's another. The first egg you go and get it a really nice like roost. Yeah, tastes really metallic. Yeah, if they had the goose for a long time, then you would think like, yeah, you're getting a lot of money here. How much gold could possibly be inside of this goose that it's going to make up for it? Or was this just day number 2? They're like, you know what? Let's cut it open. Thanks, Hattie. What other parallels are we seeing here? Yeah, in the other 2 stories, they're still alive at the end, though they do lose what they had gained. They lose this potential source of income, or they lose this nice house. Achan loses literally everything. He loses life, and then everything that he knows and cares about is also destroyed, like 3 times over. So that's both like a similarity and where this story is slightly different. What is different about this? And that's really what I think is maybe a little more interesting. Start with what details are different. How does the story? Yes. So the other one is they need to just be moral, reasonable people. This one, they were given a command. Don't take this stuff. It's devoted to the Lord. That's really good. We'll come back to that, actually.
I think unless I'm mistaken, like, he was given the instruction with the promise of a later reward, and other than Jericho had not, like, seen any kind of fulfillment of that yet, so maybe he was having doubts about it, or, thought maybe it really mattered. Whereas in the others, they were kind of actively receiving what they had been told they would get.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a contrast here. In some sense, it seems like the Achan's sin is more egregious. He was explicitly told not to do this, whereas the other ones, it was more ambiguous. They have to figure it out. But on the other hand, the other ones actually got to see some reward, and that should help maybe reinforce good decision making. I don't know who here has children. And these are questions that you have to ask. Versus with Achan, he's got nothing to base this on. I mean, maybe he saw like the Red Sea get parted not long ago, but assuming he forgot about that. Yeah, it's been several chapters. It's been a few books since then.
Human beings. That's just our internal thing. It's greed and want and satisfaction.
Yeah.
But so he hadn't been. They've been in captivity for all those years and everything before, and I think that had something to do with his mindset. I'm available to get, or this is available to me to take. I haven't had anything like this before in my life. None of us have. But a little bit of greed in human nature is
And you have to remember that Achan wasn't alive when they were in Egypt, most likely.
Okay.
If he was very young.
So ignore the Red Sea comment.
Well, everybody that
because this is at the end of the wilderness. Yeah.
And then they came to the promised land, and they sent the spies in, and the spies came back and said, "Come scary," and they said, "No, don't take us in there." And God said, "Everybody that's part of Israel right now, not going in. They all died in the wilderness." So
put your best psychologizing hats on and let's pursue this a little bit more. What is it telling us about human nature? Either any of the stories. What is it suggesting about people?
You have to learn that wanting something is okay, but not getting it is also okay.
Okay.
And that's the big challenge for
Yeah.
more people that today than I would say any time in our past.
It is noteworthy that this gets a Bible story because it's one guy's family.
I tell my kids all the time, it's okay to want that.
Yeah.
You know, that's great. Go ahead and want it. But you're not going to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta go chase that thing.
I feel like I've heard that many times.
Just find the one thing. Go ahead and want it.
What else do y'all think this tells us about human beings?
Human nature kind of is a self-preservation kind of thought and a human being too, really. We're made by God, but we don't have the same mindset. We got the free agent to do whatever we thought we needed and do. And I think it's a trial. Life is a trial. That we seek. Eventually, I hope everybody will seek God in this way. But until you reach that point, you're just a fragile human being with wants and desires and even violence. You know, you.
This becomes a really important theme in later Christian theology after the New Testament. That a major aspect of the Christian life is the ability we recognize that as humans we have desires, and passions is sometimes the technical word that's used there, and that these are good. We're not supposed to not have these, and yet they are difficult to tame and to orient and to point in the right direction. But that's part of what we're called to do, is to aim these passions. Yeah. To listen to one versus the other. Other thoughts on these stories? Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about consequences of others, and then it gets in hybrid, so it's okay, enjoy it either, but still it was all about himself, and I think that's one thing that when Paul talks about
Yeah, it is really important. I think that's one of the main differences between these stories, is that other people are harmed in Achan's story. Maybe you could say with the fisherman and his wife, the change the sun, moon, stars, but I think it gets cut off right before then. So with Achan's story, a lot, both in the battle, and then Achan's family are also harmed because of this. Two things, and then we'll be done. First is just in the back of your head, comparing Achan's story to Solomon's story, Solomon's request, sort of the opposite of or really it's a strong comparison to the fisherman and his wife. Given this option, you can wish for anything, Solomon, and he instead he makes the virtuous wish for wisdom, and then he gets the treasure, so the opposite direction. The last thing I wanted to note is, when I was thinking about these stories, I think there's a real potential to fixate on the exaggeration or hyperbole in these stories. So with the first two, it seems like the cottager and his wife are just unreasonable. Like clearly there's not like a lump of gold that is giving you, like even in like a magical world where you're getting a goose that lays golden eggs, that makes no sense. Why would there be like gold inside of it? Anyways, and then okay, so they just made a bad decision. And his wife, okay, she's just like goes way overboard. Just You can probably even ask for more than a nicer house. Get a few reasonable wishes in there, but you just ask for too much. To be equal with God, that's way too much. Being unreasonable. With Aiken's story, it's kind of on the other side. It's this exaggeration of just took a few things, but then it results in the destruction. Like people lose their lives. His whole family gets stoned and burned and stoned again. It's really bad. But it all seems like sort of hyperbole, and for us, we might think, okay, it's an exaggerated version of don't be greedy. But I think that these stories, both the biblical stories and these traditional fairy tales, are wanting to put us into a frame of mind in which we recognize this fundamental and grave misalignment in which people can think that nature and the world and other people are subject to their own desires and their own purposes. And how fundamentally mistaken that is so, there's few things as grave as that, and that's why it ends with these horrible consequences for everyone involved. And recognizing, no, there is something really bad about this. It's not just, oh, it was a small, they were kind of greedy, seems overblown to have had them killed. It's trying to present to us, no, this is something that everyone struggles with, and we need to be aware of. All right, thanks for being here. Next week, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. It's going to be great.